Yo, 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 what is up, team? This is Art, and today we are going to be going over charts along with just some live trading. Pretty much what I'm looking at today is the ticker set that I was given the other day. That is because a lot of this market opened up extremely green, and so it does make it a little difficult to chart it overnight, especially considering that most stocks that I normally play are up or down 2%. But if you look at a heat map, if we look at a heat map, we can actually see right here, it is a huge green day. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, so firstly, Tesla. That's my first stock request. Tesla, double bottom at 700. I'm not surprised. So I think that we might end up continuing at Tesla's level, especially considering the uncertainty with the Twitter acquisition. I think with Tesla, it's people are a little scared right now. When you actually go to look at Twitter itself, you can see that as this deal is kind of falling apart, it is starting to sell right off. Here's the news. Here's the initial sell-off. This is selling the news. Here's actually the hold of this level as people realize, oh, okay, this might actually hold through. And then overall, I think Tesla is going to be, I think right now it's a pretty big bargain, but I'm going to wait for this thing to cross over before I start entering it. I think that the 9 SMA might end up pushing us lower for this thing. And so I would be a little curious to see as to if we reject and head back down to 700 and actually break, or if we bounce here and then head higher. Because you got to keep in mind right now it's up 3%. That said, though, I am going to be a slight short bias on Tesla because of it being below all the SMA lines. Really quick, let me do QQQ. So same thing with QQQ is that we're trying to cross over right now. We are above the 9 SMA. Ideally, this is kind of what we see Tesla do. So this is our crossover. We have a relatively weak RSI. It's the only thing that I'm a little scared of here. But if we can have this crossover hold, I'll be pretty comfortable holding out for a little bit. So crossover, and then this thing goes into neutral for the RSI. I'll be very comfortable taking long on QQQ above 314 and then eventually to 330 back before this drop. Excuse me. All right, Coinbase. Coinbase is kind of interesting because it was literally just at 40 and now it's back at 60. And so what can I say? I mean, we're still massively oversold on this thing. I would be careful, honestly, at this current level. It might go for the test at 75, which is pretty fair. Honestly, I might even scoop it up here. I think Coinbase is still a solid buy. I think a lot of people are scared of crypto right now. I think that is definitely causing the actual stock price to drop in this thing. Not necessarily because it is a bad stock, but more so people are fearful of that commodity in general, which might be a weakness that it has. So Coinbase, I mean, I like it personally, not financial advice, but it is definitely a more risky play. We also have a nice little bull flag, actually. Costco. Okay, Costco opened up red and took this huge bounce, which is pretty interesting. So Costco opens and then just flies downwards about 10 points. Bounced right back up. We double bottomed that 480 mark, which is very good. We might have a pincer bottom, kind of like a scissor bottom style play. If it does end up playing out, I'll be taking Costco long, especially above 497. If it does do that, I'll be taking this thing back up to 510 and then 520, then 530. I think the recovery on Costco is going to be one of the most amazing things to trade because you got to keep in mind this thing was just at all-time highs and is down about $120 from highs. So right now, I mean, I was just talking to a few people in my chat in that the stock itself it's pretty prime right now, to be honest. And I think once we actually start showing a sign of life here, aka we cross over this MACD, because right now we're still oversold. I would call this oversold. I think we crossed his MACD line, and we break above 497. I think sky's the limit on Costco. I think we'll eventually start climbing back up and continuing the uptrend that this thing had held for so long. Because if you look at Costco, I mean, this thing's been an uptrend since about 375. And if I pull this chart even further back, it has just been an absolute shred. Notice we're sitting at the 50 SMA on the weekly chart. Overall, Costco, I think long term is a super fun play, super good play. Not financial advice, but I do think it's a great buy. I'm personally going to be scooping even more shares up here. Apple, I'm currently holding a position in Apple. I'm actually red. I bought in at about at 148.75.8 mark. I think that Apple right now is currently teetering my stop loss because of QQQ is kind of pulling back a little bit. That said, let me remove all these lines. That would help me out a little bit more. Okay, so the beef right now I have with Apple is 4-hour chart is wide open to the upside. 5-minute chart is trying to cross down. I think short term we might see this thing fall a little bit, but long term, I think Apple's going to continue like kind of uptrending from this bottom down here at 139. What I'm a little fearful of is 150 rejection. I think if we reject 150, this thing turns into an H or even just a bear flag rather. And if it does end up happening like that, I would be a little concerned. But otherwise, I'm gonna keep holding my position. I know I said stop 148, which we can do. But I think the 4-hour chart is gonna kind of supersede things. So I'm just gonna leave this position alone because there's really nothing saying I should leave. This looks like a bull flag here on the 4-hour chart, so I don't have beef with it personally. Wells Fargo. Okay. Look, finance stocks are such a bargain right now. Look at this crossover. We're going into neutral RSI. I think that this segment of stocks, finance, American Express, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, are all going to do really well. That's personally what I think. I think they're dirt cheap right now, and so for that reason, I'm just going to continue buying. I mean, that's all I can say. I think the interest rates are going to be a major factor in the continuation for these things. I think a lot of people are selling these off mainly because of SPY selling off, but if you look at it overall, I think finances are pretty strong right now. Let me just remove all these old alerts actually. Twilio. I have not traded Twilio actually ever, but we'll chart this one out. High is at 400, now it's at 102. Trying to cross over, pretty oversold. Rejected 50 SMA, has almost like a triangle that we're trying to break. Above 105, I would consider it long, but right now I think it's too early to call. Microsoft. I think Microsoft's a bargain. I mean, again, I said this in the previous stock talk, but I think Microsoft's an absolute bargain at the price that it's currently at. And considering that it's now above the 9 SMA, we do have a little bit of confirmation that we might head higher. That said, though, I would probably just wait for the confirmation of this crossover here on the daily chart. We have Shopify. So Shopify crossed over $372. That is so cheap. You got to keep in mind, this thing literally at the beginning of the year was, I'll even call it November. November was $1,700 a share. This is such a, literally a complete bargain. I think this is finally going to be that little uptrend that we need to see start. Look at this daily chart has a 9 SMA cracking above. We also have the 20 SMA that's pretty much right above us here. I think we break this thing and I think we push quite a bit. Look at this 4-hour chart. Triangle. Again, similar to what we just saw in Twilio, but if we can get above this 386 mark, I think we can totally see Shopify start making a pretty sweet recovery overall, just as a long-term stock. That said, I would wait for this crossover, but I do really like Shopify. Actually, I'm going to put that on my own watch list just so I can look at it myself. To watch for long-term shop. Okie dokie. Alrighty. So really quick, let me keep an eye on Pan W. Never traded that one before. Okay, Pant W, I would say is still very bearish. Palo Alto Networks, I would say this is pretty bearish. Notice we're rejecting the 9 SMA. Here's test number 1, 2, and 3. MACD still open to the downside, and we're almost creating an H on RSI, which might be potentially another leg lower back to retest this like 460 mark. I would overall say I'm not very convinced here with Pan W. I have M, which is Macy's. I'm not sure if this is trying to play on that whole GameStop hype that we just saw, AMC hype, but this looks like an H, so I wouldn't take it personally. I don't like it, unless you're taking it to the downside. Let's see. Let's see. DraftKings? This is a name that I have not heard in such a long time. It is barely now crossing over. A break above 14 would take you to 16.2. I mean, I know it's not a crazy move considering how much it used to move, but I think 2% is kind of big for this thing because that would be or not 2%, $2 would be a pretty big move. I just don't know how this thing's playing now, but if you're just playing the actual just indicator setup, it says we go higher, so DraftKings to go higher. Target is looking kind of ugly. I think it's also just kind of on that Walmart type of thing, and then these guys have earnings as well. Or not earnings, a dividend. Sorry about that. H pattern, I think it heads lower personally. I think the only retail stock that's actually kind of holding strength is Costco again. It's the one that bounced. It's the one that looks good. WD. I have never heard of this stock either, but trying to cross the MACD line, you broke above the 9. If this thing turns into a bear flag, look for a retest of 96. Otherwise, I would probably just avoid this thing for a little bit. The 4-hour chart is crossed, so that is good. You are riding the 9 SMA. So shorter term trade, like a week-long swing, pretty solid. Once this thing crosses over, you can probably hold it for a little bit longer. Overall, looks good. Just be careful of this thing turning into a bear flag. Right now, it looks like a J, so not bad. I think LMT long term, it went up a lot because of the war and all. Lockheed Martin. Okay, yeah. So Lockheed Martin has been absolute shred. I think it holding the 430 mark is pretty good in terms of its long term. I mean, look at this daily chart. It has not really fallen below the 400 level in quite a while. This thing is pretty much since February been holding around where it's at currently. It is currently losing a bit of steam. I would just wait for this crossover to take it long. But I think in terms of a long term, yeah, I would wait because this almost looks like a head and shoulder, which means that if it breaks below 430, you'll probably end up seeing this thing fall back down this huge push that it had. That's just what I think on that. Be careful. That's what I think. I think be careful. I'm not sure why this chart's not loading up for Apple. But I think that concludes that little watch list. I appreciate everyone on YouTube for watching. Feel free to subscribe. Discord link are in the description. Same with Masterclass at a discount. Feel free to leave a comment if you have any suggestions, and I'll see you in the next video.